Hi, my name is Amy Cross, and if you're just joining me, this is the Cross Legacy, where I teach families all across the world how to save money on groceries. We have an online membership called the Grocery Solution, and right now we have a special unit that is available to people that are just signing up or members, how to preserve the holidays and make it stress-free and save you money. So make sure you check out the link below in the description to sign up. So we are going to get into talking about all the secret tips I have for making this stuffing special today. I love hosting the holidays, but it can be a bit overwhelming, especially when you're someone like me that has a chronic illness. So when the weather starts changing, my reflective sympathetic dystrophy starts acting up and I can get way more achy and have harder days. So I understand needing to prep ahead for the good days to be able to enjoy the holidays with my family. So over the years, I have learned not only how to master this recipe, but to make it make ahead and allergy friendly. I'm going to show you how to make this so you can either bake it on Thanksgiving or put it into the freezer with some money saving tips along the way. One of the things that I love about this recipe is I've learned how to make it ahead so I can actually toss it into the freezer the days or even weeks before the holiday, which saves so much time and cleanup on the actual holiday. I pull it out the night before the holiday and be able to bake it fresh right after I pull the turkey out of the oven. Since our family has so many allergies in it, one of the things that I do make sure before we have a holiday is to see who's attending and what allergies I am dealing with. Some years we've needed our stuffing and all the items to be gluten-free, and you can easily do that by just substituting gluten-free bread or breadcrumbs instead of having traditional bread. So by thinking and planning a little bit ahead to see what kind of sensitivities and allergies that your family members might have, you can still have those traditional side dishes that you want. Craisins are one of the items that makes this stuffing special, and I love that I can get a great big bag of them at Costco, and it will actually stay fresh for a couple years in a glass jar with the metal lid in my pantry. One of the first steps I do when I'm making my stuffing is I will add 3/4 cup of craisins to a bowl and a 1/2 cup of apple cider juice, and that will help them plump back up and be juicy. Now, pine nuts is something that can be super expensive if you don't find them on sale, and normally during the holiday time is a perfect time to get them, but it's also something if you can't find at a reasonable price, you can skip totally in this recipe. But I try to plan ahead for them and buy them during the holiday season. Oftentimes you'll find them in the bulk section of your grocery store if you have one, but also if you're getting a cup-sized portion of it, you only need a small portion for this recipe, and I store the rest in a glass mason jar in my pantry, and it will stay fresh for a year. Or you can throw them in the freezer and they will stay fresh for many years. So don't worry about buying a small portion of pine nuts for this recipe. You can use it many ways and they will stay fresh a long time. Okay, we are going to chop our onions, but remember, whenever I chop an onion, I always chop the whole thing, even if I'm not using it, and I will store the rest in the refrigerator with a metal lid, and that way it won't smell, but it will also stay fresh for about 10 days, which is something to plan ahead for the holidays, that you can get some of this chopping done early and have things prepped in the refrigerator ready to go. This recipe calls for Italian sausage, and it's a good reminder that when you're buying Italian sausage in these styrofoam containers, that they only last for about 3 months in the freezer. So if you are going to freeze them and you want them to stay fresher a little bit longer, make sure you put them in a glass container in the refrigerator, or a freezer safe bag is one of the best options. Okay, now let's talk about the bread items here. So I love the sourdough bread from Costco that we can get in our area. I'm not sure if you can get it all the way across the United States, but this bread only has 4 ingredients and it's shelf stable because of the way that it's packaged. So I get this all of the time and we have it on our shelves, but you can use any kind of bakery bread or make your own if you're making sourdough bread, but I normally use 1 loaf and then 1 package of herb stuffing that you can just buy. Another thing is over the years we've had some family members that have been gluten-free, so I can just substitute all of this out and use 2 gluten-free loaves of bread, and then you want to chop it up into smaller pieces, and you can toast it in the oven for a little bit, and you can even spray it with a little bit of olive oil and put some seasoning on it, and you will make your own homemade stuffing. So make sure if you are trying to make this allergy friendly, it's really easy to make some swaps and make it work for your family. Okay, for garlic, I normally cut off the bottom end like this, and then I take my knife and I smush it. It just pops off. All right, I normally start with toasting the nuts first, and then that way I can just set them aside until later and my pan isn't all dirty from making the sausage and the onions. So we are going to do that just by adding a little bit of oil into the pan, and then we are going to toast the nuts until they are lightly browned. We're gonna make sure to watch these because they will burn quickly. Okay, this is the color brown that you want it to look like, and it starts smelling like popcorn. So you want to pull it off really quick because it will burn. Just gonna add just a little bit of oil and then add the chopped onions. Okay, I am cooking the onions and they still need to cook a little bit, but I want to get the sausage in here and keep it cooking, and I'm not going to add the garlic until the sausage is almost browned, and then that way the garlic doesn't turn bitter. So since I'm trying to do this all right now, that is the order I'm going to do things. This is 1 onion and 1 pound of Italian sweet sausage for us. This is normally when I add the salt and pepper. So you can add it now or you can add it at the very end. Now that this is browned and the onions are translucent, now I'm going to add the garlic into the pan, and the salt and pepper are already in there. All right, when I'm trying to get grease out of the pan really quickly, I just kind of push whatever I'm cooking over to the side, tilt it up, and then use a paper towel and just grab a lot of that grease out of there. Super easy. All right, let's talk about this for a second. Sometimes I prep way far ahead because I know that I'm struggling and not having great days. I can either stop right here with the sausage and onions and just cool this off and then put it in the freezer, and I can pull it back out the day before Thanksgiving and finish making the dressing, or I can go ahead and do most of the steps. So if you are cooking the apples with the sausage, then they will be okay in the freezer. We're just gonna let this cook for a couple minutes while I cut my bread. The apples are tender now, the onions and the garlic are in here, the sausage is brown, all the things. This is perfect. Now we're gonna add in the thyme and sage into the pot. All right, we are adding the sausage mixture into the bread and the pine nuts. Okay, I'm gonna mix this up before I add the cranberries back in. We have everything in this bowl with the bread and the stuffing crumbles and the seasoning and the onions, Italian sausage, apples are all in there, and we still have our craisins that we're pumping up that have a little bit of apple juice or apple cider, and we're going to pour that over the top. Since I seem to make this multiple ways and I just randomly put things in a bowl, if you happen to put the seasoning in the bread mixture or in the pan when you're making the Italian sausage, it doesn't matter. It all ends up in the same bowl at some point. So do whatever you would like. I notice that sometimes I want to add it to the breadcrumbs and sometimes I want to add it to the pan. So there is no specific way it has to be done for that. But now we have the craisins added to this mixture and the apple juice that was in that bowl. So not the extra apple juice, just the apple juice that was in the bowl is all in here, and it's mixed thoroughly. And this is where you can stop if you want to. So you can take this, I normally do it in a gallon-sized freezer bag and put it in the freezer at this point right here. And I can do this a couple weeks before Thanksgiving, or I can do it the week of Thanksgiving. I just make sure that the night before I pull it back out of the freezer and I put it in the refrigerator. I like doing it in gallon-sized bags because it's easy to get it into the refrigerator when it's totally stuffed of items that I need for Thanksgiving. So that's why I don't freeze it in the casserole dish. But you can stop right here and be able to have this prepped and ready to go for Thanksgiving. But since we are going to be making this soon, I'll show you the next step. I'm going to pour it into a large casserole dish. All right, now that it's in the casserole dish, either you're making it fresh right now or you pulled it out of the freezer and it's defrosted in the casserole dish. Now we're going to add the 2 cups of apple cider into it and the 1/2 cup of melted butter. Now that the apple cider and the butter is in here, I'm just going to mix it up just a little bit. Try not to dump any out the side. Most years, depending on how large my turkey is, I'm able to have a low rack in my oven and still have the turkey in the oven. So right before it's time to pull the turkey out, I try to slide this in that lowest shelf in the oven with tinfoil on it. But even if you don't have enough room with the turkey in the oven, then as soon as you pull the turkey out to rest, there is enough time to warm this up while the turkey is resting. So I'm going to cover this with tinfoil and it's going to go into the oven. This stuffing is going to be perfect for a side dish for us for Thanksgiving. And if you're wondering how I make a turkey or my super special brine recipe, that video will follow next. And don't forget to check out the description for our Preserving the Holidays special link.